It's the Brad and John Show.
It's the Brad and John Show for a fake Friday. It's actually Thursday, July 3rd, but I would be here tomorrow. But John, once again, would you be here tomorrow?
Absolutely not, Brad. Your ridiculous work ethic is just especially compared to mine. You know, I'm known, Brad, over 23 plus years of taking so many days off, Brad. So it's not surprising that I wouldn't want to do a radio show with you on a beautiful holiday weekend.
You know, you should replace Mark Reardon on 97.1 because I think he works like half the year. I think Mike Elam could get a full-time job just doing fill-in work on 93 or 97.1.
No, Brad,
yes,
come on.
Yes, okay. Time for Brad's Top 3.
It's time for Brad's Top 3.
I think I just said that. But ladies, I'll give you a slide this time. But if you say it one more time, thank you so much. And we start off with...
It's number 3.
UPenn. John, we did not talk about this, but to me, this is earth-shattering news. The UPenn thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, you explained it to me yesterday, but I'm still not hip to it. I haven't done any independent research on it.
Okay. Some people will say that, once again, the Trump administration essentially blackmailed or put the heavy hand or decided they were going to call Guido to take a visit to the UPenn administration office. But UPenn has done a 180 and have denounced men are essentially men claiming they're women in all sports, and essentially decreed that they are going to reverse all the records that were set by Leah Thomas and other men posing as women are null and void. They have essentially done a 180-degree turn. And essentially, the reason is supposedly that the Trump administration, like what they're doing with Harvard and with Columbia, is saying, hey, you know, we got this government money. I think it's like 9 figures of money. I think it's like 140, or I think it was like $185 million. And you know what? Unless you do something, we're not going to give you that money. So UPenn said, oh, we need that money because we're having less people go to UPenn and more people go to Brad's School of Broad Chasing. But so, and now here's the interesting thing. Tell me if I'm right on this. In 2 different articles, I read the fact that they said that this would impact Leah or Riley Gaines because she tied for 5th with Leah Thomas. Didn't she tie for 1st? Wasn't Riley Gaines and Leah Thomas tied for 1st? Wasn't that the big controversy?
I don't think so, but because I did see one of the first things I saw this morning, Brad. I follow Riley Gaines on social media, and I saw someone was giving her trouble about the fact of, yeah, well, that just means now that you finish 4th instead of 5th. And she made a comment was, well, what's worse, me being a 4th place finalist or this guy competing against men and finishing like 283rd? Or something like that. I think she was replying to Keith Olbermann. But yeah, I don't think she would have finished 2nd that race. But she's called out whoever would have actually won that race.
Well, you know, here we go again. I mean, there have been people. I don't understand this. I mean, I can't understand how anybody with half a brain in their head can say, and once again, we've talked about this before, men and women are the same physically. Yeah, right. Okay, now, first off, men have parts that women don't have. Let's the twig and berry,
right.
The twig and berries versus stuff like that. But it's just a known fact that if you take a group, let's say you go into a high school classroom, and let's say it's a bunch of seniors, and there's 20 men and there's 20 women. You mean to tell me that those 20 women could go out and hit a baseball as far as any guy in the classroom, could throw a football as far as any guy in the classroom, could run as fast as any guy in the classroom? Now, there are probably some guys in bad shape, but for the most part, it's not going to happen, is it, John?
Yeah, it's not fair. And this is where, excuse me, this is where progressives and Democrats lose normal people who might even tend to be pretty progressive. When you start pretending that when men and women are the same, you've lost that crowd.
Yes, exactly. And to the point where I mean, you take any 40-year-old guy and a 20-year-old woman And the chances are that 40-year-old guy can beat the crap out of that 20-year-old woman. And I'm not trying to say, but I'm saying in practically anything. And, people say, well, that's not a fair comparison. 20-year difference. They're twice as old. And it's just so sad to me because of the fact that physically women are smaller. Physically, their bone structure is smaller. They have less muscle mass.
Absolutely.
It's just
rather just two. We're just two different sexes. We're
Right.
not genders. There are two sexes.
It's like saying squirrels and monkeys are the same. They're both animals. No, they're not. They're two different.
Yeah, not at all. And again, not only are you, well, with me, Brad, preaching to the choir here, but again, reasonable people. And, Brad, anybody who's ever raised children, and you've had the joy, as I have, of raising both boys and girls, you know the difference their entire life in terms of muscle mass, speed, strength. They're just, men and women are just good at different things.
Right. My oldest son, my sons are 6'8", 6'6", and 6'4". My daughter's 5'10". My daughter is somewhat substantial for a woman, and she hates being 5'10". But trust me, my daughter would not have a chance going against any of my kids in a wrestling match, in a arm,
Anything that involves upper body strength or speed and power.
Exactly. And yes, there are exceptions. There are women who are extremely strong. I get that,
and that proves the rule.
But yes, but it's the exception to the norm. It's not the norm. And what you said before is that's perfectly, you've said it right up front. The whole election was about the fact that we have the Democrats who are saying, we need this, we need that. And even the average people who would normally be Democrats are going, okay, they lost me. These people are getting too weird.
Yeah. When you start pretending that boys should be able to compete against girls, and not only do you pretend that is a real thing, but then you emphasize it, you spend your party's time talking about it, you deserve to get punished.
Right. It just doesn't make any sense. Okay, number 2, you ready for that?
I am.
It's time for Brad's number 2. It's time for Brad's number 2.
I don't know if you heard this yesterday, but on the Andrew Bailey Show on 97.1 with co-host Annie Fry, because it's now the Andrew Bailey Show. Okay, he's on there ripping the Grain Belt Express. Okay, should I explain what the Grain Belt Express is?
Yeah, please do. And by the way, folks who want to follow along can go to johncombest.com where I have a link to that interview up today.
Okay. The Grain Belt Express is a series of power lines that will go essentially from Kansas through Missouri, the northern tier of Missouri, into Illinois and Indiana to convey or transmit. I would probably be the proper line because they're transmission lines. Transmit electricity generated by the wind farms in Kansas. Now, we don't have hardly any wind farms in the state of Missouri, at least that I know of, because we don't have. They go into the meteorological data and they have average wind speed and stuff like that, and we don't have that number. We've got Alberici who put their windmill up there at 170 and Page just to screw around with Leeds people so they could get Leeds certified. But if you drive north in 55, once you get north of Springfield and you're heading toward Chicago, you start to see the windmills up there, the wind turbines, whatever you want to call them, because guess why? What's the nickname of Chicago, John? What's that nickname?
The Windy City.
Exactly. That's why you see them up there. Okay, so what they're trying to do is they're trying to get essentially right-of-way rights to build this transmission line across northern Missouri. Now, you and I have talked about this, and John, how many dense population areas are in northern Missouri?
0.0.
If you look at the map of the state of Missouri, the population of the state of Missouri is essentially along the I-70 corridor, which you have St. Louis, Kansas City, Columbia, Jeff City to a certain extent. It's a little bit south of there. But you've got population centers to the south of Missouri. You've got Springfield. You've got Cape Girardeau. You've got some other places. But once you get north of I-70, there ain't much up there. I think probably...
Now, to be fair, Kirksville is a pretty major city in Adair County up there.
What's Kirksville? 20,000 people? It's not that big.
Yeah, Brad. I mean, it's not as big as Cottleville or Weldon Spring, but I'm just saying there is a population hub up there. And maybe, once again, that exception proves the rule. Like a big city up there is maybe 20,000 people.
So Andrew Bailey is complaining that these guys are just trying to take property away, eminent domain, from the farmers. Okay, I can tell you numerous spots. Matter of fact, if those be people who know what I'm talking about, Augusta Bottom Road in southern St. Charles County that goes into Warren County, eventually goes across the bridge into Franklin County. How many times have I driven that road? Okay, there are all sorts of transmission towers, the power line towers, in farmers' fields down there because they come out of Labadie, where we have the Ameren UE power plant, which is across the river. The power lines come across the Missouri River from Labadie, which is on the Franklin County side of the river, and they come into the St. Charles and the Warren County side of the river. They take up maybe 100 square feet. Get what I'm saying, John? 100.
I get what you're saying. So you're saying it doesn't take up much space.
Right. And the whole deal is that what you have in Kansas, and I don't understand this whole thing, all the power line people have to do is say, hey, Farmer Joe, we're putting this Grain Belt Express in, and you know what? We're going to need a pole here, a pole here, a pole here. We know you got 10,000 acres, but this is going to take up, all told, maybe an acre, and we'll pay you $1,000 a month. And guess what? We'll maintain everything out there. And if there's any problems, call us 24/7. We'll come out and fix it. But you know what? Shouldn't cause you any problem. I don't get it. What's the big deal? He talks about sounds like, oh, they're taking away the farmer's property. They won't be able to drive their John Deeres. I'm going like, it's not a big deal.
And so I think, isn't Grain Belt Express's, if I recall correctly, their argument is pretty much what you said, Brad, which is we are looking to compensate these folks. We're going to give them, an appropriate amount of money.
Yes.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Brad. But I mean, politically, isn't every advantage for Andrew Bailey, isn't every advantage to say we're going to stand up to this out-of-state company and their stupid wind energy power lines?
But you know what? It's just, to me, and see, I think the point being is, like you said, the Grain Belt Express people, and he talks, they're a private company. Blah, blah. Okay, hey, dude, guess what? Guess what keeps you paid? Private companies paying taxes to the state of Missouri. That's what keeps you in your job, dude. So stop knocking the private companies. You know what I mean? But what you said is correct. Most of the farmers are going, yeah, pay me. Farmers make money if they're along an interstate. They lease part of their property to cell phone towers. They lease part of their property to billboards. You know what I mean? It's like the farmers make extra money on that. But what happens is you got Jim Bob, butthead farmer who's going, well, my granddaddy and my granddaddy before him and my granddaddy before him had farmed his property, and we don't want no stinking power line in our property because it's going to irradiate the crops, and nobody will buy our grain because there's going to be electricity in them there pipes. You know what I'm saying? And
I think JBBF should be a new quote for Jim Bob Butthead Farmer. So when you have make-believe quotes, Brad, on your various websites like Tracy or Tracy L. Lists, you should also use JBBF for Jim Bob Butthead Farmer. Also, a quote from the folks, Brad, a timely quote from the folks from Grain Belt Express via MissouriNet. We should be building energy infrastructure in America, but the Missouri Attorney General is instead playing politics with U.S. power. His last-ditch and obviously politically driven attempt to delay construction of a critical American power project comes at a time when our country is facing a national energy emergency. So that's what Grain Belt side of the story is, Brad.
I agree with them 100% because of the fact that we have an antiquated grid system. Most of the grid that our electricity has been built decades ago. I mean, and the problem is it's aging infrastructure. It's not in the best of shape. And those Chinese people, have infiltrated our computer network. And one day they're going to go, hey, let's turn off the power to Andrew Bailey's house. Bonk. And his electricity is going to go out. He's going to say, oh, it's those Grain Belt Express people. And they'll go, no, it's the Chinese people just turned off your electric.
Yeah. And before we get to story number one, Brad, I would like to thank you on behalf of Ameren for making the intelligent and articulate case for funding construction works in progress. Brad, you said it. We have to empower and strengthen the energy grid. Yes, ratepayers should be paying more money right now for construction works in project.
John,
in process.
John,
in progress, whatever.
John, were you on the debate team in high school?
I was not, but I do want to hear story number one, and I want to hear some chickadees sing.
And now, Big finish. Brad's number.
It is Brad's number one, and this is so timely. I was going to do this yesterday, the day before, but after listening to Armstrong and Getty yesterday, I thought to myself, okay, this is going to be my number one. This is a story that comes from the Missouri Times, originally written by Rebecca Rivas. New York-based cannabis...
you mean Missouri Independent?
Yeah, Missouri Independent. That's correct. New York-based Cannabis Public Policy Consulting, LLC, was awarded a contract this month to study Missouri's marijuana market for the next year. The group's $238,700 contract to conduct an economic impact study will help the state determine, quote, whether or when the state will be required to issue additional cannabis facility licenses, and if so, how many, where, and what type. John... I am so sick of this cannabis stuff. This is so stupid. This is so ridiculous. Yesterday on the Armstrong and Getty show, they chronicled, I think it was Pueblo, Colorado. They did a really good segment on this about how Pueblo, Colorado, when Colorado became the first state to legalize marijuana, they talked about how Pueblo, Colorado was going to totally change, and they were going to have this huge industry, the marijuana industry, and it was going to generate all this tax revenue.
It was going to be like the Napa Valley for potheads.
It was going to be like what the Hoffmans were going to do to Augusta.
And, Brad.
And guess
what?
But
then what happened? It didn't exactly happen in Pueblo, did it?
It flopped. And the exact same thing happened in Colorado that's happened in California when the government steps in. Oh, we're going to regulate the marijuana industry. The guys, they think it gets rid of the black market. It doesn't. And they talked about how, I think they said, actually, and I got to see if I can find this story, but if the number 70% came up, they talked about that 70% of the marijuana sales in Pueblo are black market marijuana. That people are, and the interesting thing that said that the black market people, since they're unregulated, can move quicker. They can respond to client demand for different kinds of products quicker, as opposed to the government-sanctioned marijuana places that have to, hey, can we sell popsicle sticks that are infused with CBD? And instead of that, if that becomes a big trend, the black market people go, hey, Juan, go down to the popsicle stick store, buy 10 million popsicle sticks, and we're going to infuse them with CBD, and we'll have them on the market tomorrow. Get what I'm saying, John? As opposed,
yeah, I get exactly what you're saying, and I think that's the point of Eben Thampy and his folks that were, quite frankly, cut out of the original cannabis deal. And then the second cannabis deal, they were cut out of medical marijuana. Then they were cut out of recreational marijuana. And if I'm the hemp guys, I'm like, dude, you know what? Let's scrap this whole thing and just open it up.
And you know what? I agree with them. Blow the whole thing up. If the marijuana people can put the constitutional amendment on the ballot, have the hemp people go on there and say, hey, that marijuana thing, we're blowing that off the Constitution because we're going to one-up them. We're going to say anything goes, which is, see, that's me, the libertarian. I'm essentially saying blow it wide open, like you kid about it. And I have to credit John for this. I mentioned the comment that anybody who wants to do any kind of thing, with gambling, oh, it's going to get taxpayer, it's going to give gambling money to the schools. Oh, marijuana, gambling money to the schools. Oh, legalize casino gambling, marijuana, it's going to give money to the schools. And what did John come up with when I said legalize prostitution? What was the campaign phrase?
Escorts for education.
How good is that? Yes. Let me do a quick ad right off the top of my head. Citizens of Missouri, your students are not doing well. Studies have shown their test scores are down. The reason, not enough money for the schools. That's why we say you should vote for Escorts for Education. Yes, every time a John pays a prostitute, $10 of that escorted money will go to the state to help your Billy and Jilly to do better in school. Better textbooks, better blackboards. Yes, we'll even have multicolored chalk for the teachers. Yes, vote for Escorts for Education. How is that, John?
And coming soon, Math for Math.
Yeah, Math for Math. The whole thing is just a fake, phony load of the show that Shelley and I used to do, BS, right?
BS. As we're up against break, Brad, I do want to tell you an anecdote. I was in a Schnucks parking lot last night, and I saw some smoke billowing out. And I thought maybe it was just a guy sitting there eating some ice cream. But I knocked on the window. And before I asked him for money, I asked him what he was doing. And he had some hemp rope. And I said, dude, do you know you're smoking some rope? And he said, you know what? It's not just rope. It's dope. And as the smoke cleared, I looked into his one good eye, and I saw that it was Brad Hildebrand. And I said, get out of the lot, sir. You're a vagrant.
See, am I, if the old Darcy was still in business, man, could I come up with some slogans? I'm the one that came up with what, rope is dope. Wasn't that what I said?
Yeah.
Rope.
I think it was, it's not just dope, it's rope. Or, I don't know. We gotta kick the tires of that a little bit.
It's not just dope, it's rope. Okay.